what I loved about the original was the fact that these things were not big and scary. They were small and wickedly smart. You know, and they relayed on the fact that no one could see them and no one would believe they existed. But the fact is, this movie, when I saw it as a kid, it became such a powerful movie. It left such an imprint in my imagination. And years later, I saw it again as an adult, and I realized, like, it must happen to you now and then that you reread a book or you rewatch a movie, and you realize there's a second movie that you entirely made up in all those years that is not the movie you originally saw. And I thought there's room for that movie to exist. And I started writing the movie originally in '98 with Matthew Robbins to direct myself. And one of the things I loved about it was to create these creatures the way they were in the original, because that worked.
Coming from a world where you are essentially creating worlds from scratch, you know, I think from the color palette to the design of the house, you know, working in terms of wardrobe with the characters, you know, having juxtaposition of what, you know, trying to force something that doesn't work in the context of what a house likes. I really did fixate on color. I was a color Nazi when I was working on this movie. There was movies that colors, sorry, that extras had to wear. There's a stage I broke it down. The house is all warm, like autumn colors. The outside world was all cool colors. So anytime you see anyone in the outside world that wasn't Katie or Bailey, they're wearing blues and grays and purples. So you watch every extra, I stand there and note they're wearing green, they're out. And so that all comes from, you know, years of working comics and design and being able to translate that to movies.
I was a big fan of the comic books already. Jennifer was the first time I saw his work, and I lost it after an original piece of art he had. It was Jennifer in the bed with the tentacles spilling over the blankets.
It's in his house.
Which is in my house now. I wanted very much to know that guy, you know the guy the same way that I wanted to know Mike Mignola, for example. And we met, we had a good first encounter, and then he emailed me some JPEGs of his short. And I wrote him back an extensive email saying how great it looked, blah, 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 and encouraging him to finish it. And then Nick Nunziata, when he heard we were doing Don't Be Afraid, he said, I'm going to send you that short. And I remembered how great those images were. And then I saw it, and it was entirely, a sensibility was there already of a person with a worldview. And it was very skillfully directed. So, you know, I really think one of the duties, if you can do it as a producer, is to produce first-time filmmakers. Because I much rather see somebody bring something new to a genre than producing something that seems safe. You know, so I think Troy had a new and fresh view on the material. There was one shot, which is a gash in a hand, that I wanted some tendons to show. And we had, you know, I think we agreed to tame it down. Yeah. And then we just called the effects house and said, bring the tendons back.
The movie will tell you what it needs to be. And I think that we worked that way. It was that the movie just became the movie.
Except contractually, we were PG-13. So we were in deep poop.
But everyone was really supportive of that cut. Everyone said, no, you don't want to mess with the movie. And so, yeah, there wasn't, beyond that one effect shot, there wasn't any adding or subtracting.
But funny enough, Troy may see it like it's normal, but it's completely abnormal that this happens. You know? You have a PG-13 movie contractually with a studio, and then the time comes and you get a hard R, and they tell you you cannot change anything because it's pervasive scariness, which is like talking about morbid obesity in a candy store, I guess. It's completely impossible to solve. And then the studio supported us. They said, leave it as an R. I mean, that's like a jaw-dropping moment for me, because I know. But it was beautiful to get that. It was like a badge of honor.
There wasn't any pressure at all that we felt on our end to do a post-3D version of it all. No,
we did an investigation of 3D because the studio did ask how much would it cost to be 3D?
Yeah.
But look, this movie was done for a fraction of the cost. This was done because we wanted to preserve the ending we wanted. We wanted to preserve the hardcore stuff we wanted. And if we went over budget or we went too big, we were going to start losing those freedoms. So it's a low-budget movie for the size of production it is. And when the studio heard the number that it would require to shoot it on 3D, they said, keep it on 2D. It was, mind you, it's a combination of very fortunate economic timing and artistic integrity. I believe as producer and producer-director that your duty is to create a beautiful horror film. You know, something that really resonates in the orphanage or this or any of the movies, that they need to have a really beautiful, valid, aesthetic proposal, and Troy had it in spades.
Right away, I made a decision that because most horror movies that take places in houses are like old rundown houses, and I was like, no, this house is going to be beautiful in the daytime, just a place where an audience wants to be. So that when you start introducing those scares, then it makes you a little uncomfortable. It's like, wait a minute, this is a really nice house. Why is this stuff happening here? And so it does bring a richer sort of back. Because you're waiting, you hear the creaking things and broken windows and stuff. You're waiting for something to happen, but you're seeing this beautiful, beautiful home, and you don't know when something is going to happen.
And an entire, for example, the nursery or the child's room is entirely inoffensive.
Yes, yeah.
Entirely, like it looks like out of a Bed Bath and Beyond catalog. You're like,
And that was intentional as well, because the idea was this little girl coming from Los Angeles, kind of this little hip kid, and so they, her dad, who doesn't know her very well, and his new girlfriend who's never met her, create this room that they think this little 9-year-old girl would love, and it's not at all.
there's a particular object which is a stuffed bear that becomes very menacing.